Welcome to the highlights reel for StraightTalk. It's a brand new show where the panellists are unashamedly and unapologetically social conservatives. On StraightTalk, we discuss social issues that matter, without constraint, without compromise, and without government funding dictating to us what we should or shouldn't say. Our panel is Ashley Church, Christine Rankin, Ronji Tanielu, Alfred Nato, and Bruce Logan, all well-known names in the social conservative world. Here's a clip from our first show. It's a discussion amongst the panel regarding the sudden resignation of Jacinda Ardern in the middle of January. A decision that shocked the nation in January, and we all remember where we were when we heard the news. I was walking the dogs back from the beach and somebody texted me, Jacinda had resigned. And so the question I want to put to the panel was, were you surprised? What was the real reason for her resignation? And Christine, I'd like to start with you on this question. Was it due to misogyny that Jacinda Ardern resigned? And maybe you want to comment just in general.
Well, if it was misogyny, which I said before, a lot of women feel exactly the same way about Jacinda. So I can't see why it has to have that label. Look, I know from personal experience that women do get treated differently than men. And with what happened to me 20 years ago or so, there was a man who ran my department before and ran it in exactly the same way as I did and was just as flamboyant as me and probably more so. Nothing ever happened to him. So there are some issues in there, but I do not believe that's the reason that she resigned. She resigned because she could see very clearly that she wasn't going to win, and I don't think Jacinda could cope with that. That's the reality for me, and nothing since then has changed my mind about that. I'm sure life was tough, because life is tough when you're in politics. It's horrible, but you either choose that or you don't.
Okay, Ashley, what do you think? Were you surprised?
Well, I was surprised. In fact, people were asking me if they thought she would resign, and I said no, emphatically. So I was completely wrong. But I agree with Christine. I would go as far as to say, though, that there was an element of misogyny in it. So I mean, you'd be blind not to recognise that there were some people who celebrated the fact that she was gone simply because she was a woman. But they weren't the majority, Bob. The vast majority of people, in fact, over 50% of the population voted for her in 2020, and that was both men and women. What changed was not that she was a woman. What changed was she was a terrible prime minister, that she couldn't deliver, and that she had an authoritarian streak that we haven't seen in this country in my entire lifetime. So misogyny, a little bit, yeah, but it wasn't the main driving influence. It was the fact that she was the wrong person for the job.
Ronji, was it a good day?
Look, I think, I wasn't surprised by her resignation. I didn't support her politics or her policies, to be honest. I don't know the real reason why, but I thought it was quite a savvy political move for her to resign at that time, because it gave her party a chance to build for the election. But I think she was a victim of the whole PR and comms machine that she had built herself. And so it was all around personality rather than good policy or good politics. And I think she ended up being a victim of the machinery, the monstrosity that she had built and her comms people had built. And I think that's probably all culminated in her leaving at that time.
Alfred, what amazed me was just how far her star power fell in such a short time, and it's the cutthroat world of politics, isn't it? I mean, 2 years ago, she had a majority government. She was loved by the international media. She was loved by the national media. She was loved by the voters, and yet she was staring defeat and felt she needed to step down. Does that surprise you that how quickly it fell?
No, I agree with what Ashley had said, that, you know, it's what they call personality politics, where you're built up on a PR and a comms. And look, as Christine said, public life is a brutal world. It's a brutal place. I think it's sad, though, that in some cases we've attacked the person and we've not actually addressed the character, or, you know, and we should be able to critique leadership. And I think that's really important. And I think that if we're critiquing leadership, then from my own personal point of view, look, when the COVID first hit, she had a team of 5 million. That wasn't a problem. Everyone was on board. It was something new. No one knew how to deal with this. Actually, the point where it started to turn in the leadership decisions was when it came to vaxxed and unvaxxed and the mandating around that. In the article, in the interview that with the media, where the media asked her, so you're saying, Prime Minister, that you're creating two classes of citizens. Now, the choice of words she chose there, in fact, the lack of saying proper words, yeah, that's right. actually means you are now moving from a team of 5 million to dividing a nation. And that's really where I believe that it began to be challenged. Her leadership decisions now becoming tougher. And I think actually then, if you're a leader that's going to unite a people, that wasn't the response that the people wanted to hear.
Okay, now I know, Ashley, you want to say something, but just before you do, I just need to give Bruce a quick question. Bruce, does it make Labor less or more votable that Jacinda has gone?
It makes them more votable. I think that the writing was on the wall. It was obvious that Labor, well, it didn't look as though Labor was going to win, and Jacinda had become from what we might say a wing to a weight. And so her resignation was more or less inevitable.
Okay. Ashley, you wanted to add a point?
Oh, yeah, I just wanted to add to the comment that Alfred made about the change that took place from 2020. And I think when we look back in the next 4 or 5 years, when we start writing about this stuff and actually honestly analysing what happened, I think we'll recognise that two things changed her stakes quite dramatically. The first of them was how she reacted, and in fact all of Parliament, but her in particular reacted to the parliamentary protest. A lot of us didn't agree with some of what the protesters were protesting about, but the way that the government reacted to that, the calling of people as a river of filth, the spraying of them with water, the playing the mass arena, all of the stuff that I think most Kiwis stood back and said, hey, don't agree with you, but you're Kiwis, you've got a right to protest, and this simply isn't on. The second thing that happened was actually designed to try and help her, and it had exactly the opposite effect, and that was the hit job that Stuff Media did with the Fire and Fury series of articles and videos, which I think had, again, exactly the opposite effect. Kiwis looked at those and they thought, this is just, don't agree with these people, but these are just people expressing their views. I think when we look back and we look at those two things and some of the authoritarian decisions that she took, we'll recognise that this did not happen in isolation. It was the result of a series of things that took place that impacted on her popularity, and she's gone.
Straight Talk will return on the 27th of March, Monday nights at 8 p.m. You can watch on our website, familyfirst.nz, or on our YouTube channel or our Facebook page. Join the conservative conversation every Monday night at 8 p.m, back on the 27th.